War came. The young men all stood in line to go. But we, when asked to take the oath, simply answered no. For what we said was simple, though said by just a few. I will not shoot another man because I'm ordered to. The poem Peace Jumpers shed light on a subject that has impacted the war landscape of America. War involves soldiers who carry weapons, but many have chosen to serve unarmed. These soldiers are known as Conscientious Objectors. Conscientious Objectors, the conscious decision to defy. Conscientious objectors throughout history have found their beliefs in direct conflict with their government. These individuals refuse to compromise their religious and personal positions when asked to engage in combat during a war. Americans, like Desmond Doss of World War II and Paul Arnold of the Korean conflict, chose to fulfill their patriotic duties with non-combatant service rather than compromise their beliefs. So what is a conscientious objector, or CO? At its very core, it is a person unwilling to compromise on one's beliefs. COs fall into three categories: absolutist, alternativist, and non-combatant. Absolutists reject war in any form. Many have ended up in prisons or mental hospitals for their illegal decision. COs, known as alternativists, will not work under military authority, but will serve in civilian roles supporting their communities. The non-combatant CO will serve in the military and in war roles that do not involve fighting or bearing arms. In 295 AD, the first recorded CO was Roman Maximilianus. He did not want to perform military service due to his religious beliefs, and since he was not willing to compromise, he was executed. Throughout American history, there have always been COs. Colonists came to America to escape religious persecution. Most were members of historic peace churches known as Mennonites, Quakers, and Peace Church of the Brethren. These peace churches believed that Jesus Christ preached nonviolence. As pacifists, they did not believe in killing. With the beginning of the Revolutionary War, these pacifists were expected to fight in a war that they did not support. There were no real CO provisions at the time, except that wealthy people were able to hire a substitute or pay a fee. When the U.S. Constitution was written, a Bill of Rights CO provision was proposed. However, James Madison and his co-authors didn't include it, leaving it up to the individual states. When the Civil War started, there was still no official policy defining a CO. Once again, pacifists found themselves in direct conflict with their government. The Union states didn't require service if pacifists paid $300 to the Wounded Soldier Fund. Pacifists in the Confederate States could hide, move north, pay a $500 fee, or be imprisoned. Not willing to compromise their beliefs, many were tortured and hung. At the beginning of World War I, the U.S. again reviewed its CO policy. The Selective Service Act of 1917 included a battle exemption for peace churches, but still required service. It took almost a year to release the three non-combatant classifications of medical, quartermaster, and engineering. In 1940, the Selective Training and Service Act was passed. It expanded exemptions beyond the historic peace churches. It founded the Civilian Public Service Program, known as CPS. Alternativists could now serve their country in areas of national importance. COs were also provided an appeals process. The CO program expanded over the next 3 decades, focusing on people's beliefs and not just on religion. Even with success at the Supreme Court level to expand CO status to anyone deeply opposed to war, Congress still has not passed any legislation. In World War I, almost 3 million soldiers were drafted, with around 2% declaring CO status. 80% of those deemed fit to serve compromised their beliefs after being placed in regular military camps. Remaining COs were then placed in non-combatant roles or filled labor shortages. In World War II, 12 million men were drafted, with around 1% declaring CO status. 16% of these COs then served in CPS, with another 35% in non-combatant roles. The Korean conflict had numbers of COs similar to World War II. When the draft for the Vietnam conflict began, the Supreme Court expanded the number of recognized churches who claimed pacifist status. There were over 170,000 declared COs, and the Civilian Public Service Program could only provide jobs for half of them. In 1972, more men were registered with CO status than the military drafted as a whole. Today, our armies are volunteer-based, but the military continues to process about 100 applications annually. Alvin York served during World War I after receiving his draft notice in 1917. Violence was in direct conflict with his religion, so he refused to serve. The draft board did not recognize his religion of the Church of Christ in Christian Union because it was too small. His refusal to fight was then denied. Since he was so poorly educated and thought he had no choice, York compromised his beliefs and agreed to fight. During a battle in France where he was taking machine gun fire, he took down the enemy with only his rifle and pistol. His willingness to compromise his beliefs and go to war earned York the title of greatest civilian soldier. Desmond Doss served as a CO during World War II. In 1941, Doss was working in the Newport News Naval Shipyard. He was eligible for a military deferment, which he refused. Doss knew it would be difficult to serve given his religious convictions, and he was upset when the Army classified him as a CO.
I tried to explain that I was not type of conscious objector. I tried to explain that I was a conscious cooperator.
The Army assigned him to a rifle company, but Doss would not compromise by bearing arms. He was finally transferred to a medical attachment and was soon deployed overseas as a medic.
I knew if I ever once compromised, I was going to be in trouble. Because if you can compromise once, you can compromise again.
Upon arrival in Okinawa, the mission was to take control of Hacksaw Ridge. During one bloody battle, Doss bravely climbed to the top of the ridge where he saved over 75 men. As the battle continued, Doss was badly injured. He used a broken rifle stock to splint his arm, the closest he ever came to holding a weapon. In the end, the Americans won the battle. During the Korean conflict, Seventh-day Adventist Paul Arnold served as a CO. His paperwork was incorrectly printed, sending him to a proving ground.
They put a rifle out there. I said, I can't take that. They said, you can't take that? I said, no, I can't take that. They said, are you a CO? I said, yes.
Arnold knew there was a conflict with his CO status. The chaplain helped to reassign him to a non-combatant unit. Arnold then became a medical supply person and never had to compromise his beliefs. The Vietnam conflict would see a dramatic rise in the number of men claiming CO exemption. Thomas Bennett, part of a Navy family, believed in serving, but also believed in the sanctity of life. This personal conflict would be tested in 1968 when he was drafted. He thought he would have to flee the country or be unwilling to serve. His draft counselor then told him that he could serve as a weaponless CO medic. Bennett was relieved to not compromise his beliefs. Joseph LaPointe Jr. was also a CO during the Vietnam conflict. He wanted to serve to make his veteran father proud, but he would not compromise his Baptist beliefs. Serving as a CO in a healing way resolved this conflict. Many COs bravely served in the military. COs Doss, Bennett, and LaPointe all earned the Congressional Medal of Honor. York also earned this honor from engaging in direct battle, since the military rejected his CO status. The greatest social impact came when young men applied for CO status and found themselves in conflict with their own families. Many COs were disowned because they refused to serve. The biggest political impact for COs came in 1965 when the Supreme Court heard the landmark case of United States versus Seeger. The defendants claimed exemption based on unorthodox spiritual beliefs. The court ruled that one's own understanding of religious beliefs must be considered when determining CO status. Local draft boards could now determine classification. Additionally, the court recognized non-traditional religious groups such as Islam. In 1966, Muhammad Ali's conscientious objection claim that military service was inconsistent with his religion was denied under the Seeger ruling. The local draft board ruled that his Islamic beliefs were insincere. His case was overturned in 1971 based on the Welsh versus United States ruling in 1970, which expanded CO status to include moral and ethical beliefs. Conscientious objectors throughout history have found their beliefs in direct conflict with their government. These individuals refuse to compromise their religious and personal positions when asked to engage in combat during a war. In 1945, John F. Kennedy summarized the importance of COs by stating, "War will exist until that distant day, when the conscientious objector enjoys the same reputation and prestige that the warrior does today."